On this week's episode of The Geek State, some big toy franchises are speeding their way into the world of feature films.
I take a moment to speed review my weekend movie marathon.
And we're speedily opening up our toy box. Just kidding. And
we do it delicately.
We're opening up the toy box to discuss our favorite collections. All that and more this week in The Geek State. I think I'm just going to leave that. I don't know.
That's fine. I'm sure. I think I like it.
Right now, we want to bring out an item which we have only one of.
And this is pretty much the ultimate Star Wars collectible.
By far.
Jeff, why don't you bring out the item, if you could?
What do we got here? Well, I'm going to show
Jeff,
you.
Yeah, what do we got here?
I'm going to show you. This is the actual Mark Hamill. May the Force be with you. Go on, Mark.
Now, wait a minute. I didn't even say that in the movie.
Just say it, Mark.
Let's do it.
Say it.
Yeah.
May the Force be with you.
Fantastic!
Stand by alert.
This is it.
This podcast features new, more powerful Kung Fu grip. This is the Geek State.
We're vintage, carded, and in mint condition. This is The Geek State, the podcast covering the world of geek and stuff that we love, stuff that you love every week, whether that's science fiction, movies, video games, the latest in Star Wars, what's going on with that, what's going on with Episode 9. If this thing comes out and we already know the title, well, maybe we put out a special edition already. But we can't go any further into The Geek State without our good buddy James. James, sir, are you ready to rock and roll tonight?
I am very ready to rock and roll. I've been rocking and rolling all week. Usually I'm boring on this podcast. I have nothing new and exciting to talk about. This week is so much different than that, Chris.
I know.
I cannot wait to dive into it.
I can't wait to hear.
I've had the most eventful week.
I followed along on your Instagram story and I was like, oh, you definitely need to talk about what you did on the podcast. But before we get to that, I do want to give away our prize for the week. This week's prize is a gold chrome Captain America Funko Pop, and to be eligible to win this, all you had to do was so simple: go to Facebook or go to Twitter and retweet or share the post about the prize. And we had a nice turnout on both platforms. I think Twitter actually did the most, but needless to say, I put everybody into a drawing, and I'm going to draw a name now. And our winner is Mr. Ken Carden. Ken Carden. So if you're listening, congratulations. You just need to send me a message on Facebook, because that's where you shared it. Send me a message with your mailing address so we can get that prize out to you as soon as we can. James, I want to hear about what you did last week, because I have never seen you do this before, and I need to know, like, you got paint the picture for us. What was it like? What did you do?
Yes.
The whole spiel.
Yes. So I went to an event. It was a professional sporting event of the wrestling type. This was not a WWE event. And I had said on my Instagram story that it was my first, and then I realized I had been to a WWE event. But anyways, so I went to a Ring of Honor wrestling match event, I guess, which is kind of more of a smaller circuit. It is nationwide. They sell apparently it's a decent size. It's kind of like where the real wrestling fans go, if that makes any sense. Like, this is what the real wrestling fans know about. It's like the indie scene of wrestling. And what I could tell, I definitely enjoyed this better than the WWE event that I went to. It was a small venue in Dallas called the Southside Ballroom, if you've heard of it. It is, a small concert venue usually, but they set up the ring there. There were maybe 200 people in the whole entire place. You could the seats were, I paid $25 for my seat, and it was on the aisle right where the wrestlers left the ring. So as they walked by, we could high five them, say good job. They were all super cool. But yeah, it was just a super exciting time. There was a little bit of like maybe some cultural appropriation going on of some sort. I wasn't too comfortable with.
No, not a wrestling event.
Maybe some. There were some costumes that I wanted to see the guys 23andMe before you just like whip out a sombrero and I need to just make sure that you're allowed to wear that. But no, it was a great time. Had a little bit of a blasty blast there. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I strongly suggest if you are ever if Ring of Honor ever comes to your area, give it a shot.
Yeah. Were you there? I can't remember which Alamo City Comic Con, were you there the time where they had the wrestling set up?
I was. Yeah, that was pretty intense.
That was interesting.
It was much than that wrestling. Okay. I can guarantee you that. Because
that was my only exposure to quote unquote like professional, like that style of wrestling,
Yeah. No, it was definitely exciting. It was a lot of fun. I was there with a few friends. We had a good time. 2 of them were big wrestling fans. The other one was kind of like me, didn't dislike wrestling, but had no connection to it since 2002. It'd been a while. So we did that, and then weekend, I went on a bit of a movie marathon at the movie theater. I saw 3 movies in the theaters this weekend.
Nice.
Definitely backlog that we talked about. So I went and saw Glass, which we'll talk about at the very end of the show because we probably will dig into spoilers. And we don't want to ruin that for anyone who wants to continue doing it. And then I also saw Aquaman and Spider-Verse. Aquaman I thought was great. I enjoyed it quite a bit. The acting was not the best. Willem Dafoe was there for some reason. Of course, waste Willem Dafoe in your movie universe for that. I mean, it just seemed like a weird role for him.
Sure.
And then Spider-Verse was good. Overhyped to me, I think. I would have enjoyed it much more if I knew nothing about it or didn't hear people talking about it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Sometimes people can overhype it. I don't have depth perception, and there were definitely parts of this movie, the way that it was drawn and the way that it was things moved in the background, that really gave me a headache. So I don't think a lot of people have that issue, but it almost looked and to watch a 3D movie without glasses.
I agree. At the beginning of the movie, my friend was like, are we watching this in 3D? I mean, we don't have the glasses, but there is this kind of weird ghosting, or kind of that thing that happens in like old comics where the print registration was just a little bit off.
Yeah, it was definitely a design choice, and
sure.
Once I got used to it, it was fine. But it was just in the beginning where, yeah, like you said, where the print register is off, where the color is just outside of the border, and things like that.
Yeah. Well, we're excited to talk about Glass because that's coming up, and I feel like it's been enough time. It's been #1 at the box office for 2 weekends in a row, and enough people have seen it. So we're not going to spoil it in the main show. So if you're interested in hearing us talk about Glass, stay till the very end, and we'll talk about Glass, we'll talk about the ending, we'll talk about what we thought, and we'll talk about all of that stuff and more. Let's get into the headlines. All right, so in the news, we've got a few stories to talk about, and it was nice because we're going to talk about collecting today on the show, and some big toy franchises have some movies that are in development that I kind of thought, let's just bring these headlines to the S'more Geek family here. Mattel's toy line. It's like, apparently it's the top selling toy line in America, which doesn't surprise me. When I used to go to Toys R Us at opening time, the folks that were waiting outside were there to look for and collect Hot Wheels, which is apparently getting a live action film. This is not the first time like Hot Wheels, they've done like some animated stuff, but this is supposedly a live action something. And I don't know if they're going in the direction of like a PG-13 type of thing, like they, Transformers. Is this like a Fast and Furious, but it's Hot Wheels on like orange loop-de-loop tracks? But
yeah, I mean, it's gotta be, right?
I would hope so.
Maybe Speed Racer, like Speed Racer.
Oh,
I don't know.
Okay, I can definitely
Like they're going more like futuristic.
I can see that happening for sure. And then some other news when it comes to toys and movies. There was a post on Twitter, and it was a picture that was inside Warner Brothers Animation Studios. It was showing, a corkboard with, different quarters of the year and different graphics. Like in this quarter, it had, Lego Movie 2 and all this stuff. Well, also on this board that caught this guy's attention was a Funko Pop logo, and it said something like Funkoville or something like that. And obviously that sounds like a code name for something, but the rumor is, and I think Deadline even reported on it, that Funko Pop there's going to be an animated series with multiple different licenses representatives. So sort of like what the Lego movie was able to do. It has Batman and some Star Wars stuff, and this will be no different. But expect stuff like My Little Pony, and I've seen rumors that it would have Darth Vader and Deadpool and all of the Funko Pops in some sort of animated thing, which if I'm interested to see the style of this, because most Funko Pops, while they have eyes and nose, they typically don't have mouths. So they'll have to add that to the aesthetic. But Funko has a good history of doing some really classy little animated shorts. And you can check them out on their YouTube channel. We're going to talk more about Funko in a little bit, for sure. But James, you had some news too that I was totally unaware of when it came to Funko, and I follow Funko like religiously.
Religiously, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a little known fact that Funko also has a Gears of War game coming out that was awkwardly announced at E3. They put up the Gears emblem and everyone, went crazy, and then it showed a chainsaw sawing through it, and everyone was like freaking out, and then 2 Funko figurines pop out, and everyone's like, okay. So yeah, there is a Funko Gears of War video game coming out.
And by the trailer,
excited.
Oh, I'm super pumped. Not, but it looks like it's going to be available on iOS and Android devices. So maybe it's just a fun, free to play type of thing. So in that case, I'll test it out.
I'm sure you will. In other news, we did get some new news from the Batman's director, Matt Reeves. Now, obviously, the Batman is the upcoming film. It's been a while since we've had a standalone Batman movie, since 2012. And he kind of came out to say, kind of speak about the tone of the movie. He said it's told squarely on his shoulders. And I hope it's going to be a story that will be thrilling, but also emotional. It's more Batman in the detective mode than we've seen in his films. The comics have a history of that. He's supposed to be the world's greatest detective, and that's not necessarily been a part of what the movies have been, which is very true.
Yes.
And that's something that I thought that the Batman video games have always done pretty well, at least once they moved into the 3D spaces, the actual detective and gadgets pieces of Batman, and not just busting through walls in the Batmobile.
Right. It's typically been in the movies. It's bad guy holds world hostage. Batman must save the day. Right.
Yeah, it's almost always been Alfred's more of the detective. Alfred's been in the back, the results have come back on the and it appears to be, that's always the kind of the vibe that you get, that, almost Alfred's the brains of the operation, and Batman's kind of the brawn. Yeah. So it'll be pretty exciting to see something like this. Yeah,
Matt Reeves was saying also that casting is starting, and they're, revisit the Rogues Gallery. So I would expect there to be a lot of revisiting to the Rogues Gallery, maybe people that we've seen before or that we haven't. We could start the movie off with Batman solving a crime with one character and then moving on to another that leads us to, whoever the big bad is, at the end of the picture, in the third act. So pretty exciting. Some nice headlines. Insert Star Wars title here. If you're hearing this right now, that means that the title hasn't been announced and we didn't edit it into the show. But we're going to keep our ear to the ground, and we'll bring you the latest of what's going on in the world of geek each week right here on the Geek State.
I have Ray and Finn.
I have 3 of each. 1 to display, 1 to open, and 1 just in case.
I was listening to the Techno Retro Dads, which, by the way, first of all, thank you for everybody that's listening to this show because you heard me on Techno Retro Dads. I've been talking to a lot of y'all on Twitter, and I appreciate it. It's super cool. Well, their last episode, they talked about G.I. Joe, and they were talking about the toys they had, and it flood of nostalgic memory. And I was like, we have to do a show on collecting because I feel like everybody's a fan of something. That's kind of Funko's motto. But I think that's true. And I think there's a lot of people and we collect stuff. I think that's something that geeks do. And it always varies. I know people that only collect like Obi-Wan Kenobi. They're very character centric when it comes to their collection. They don't care what the product is. If it's Obi-Wan, they have to have it. Same with R2-D2, etc. But it's a wide range. And I had this question asked on our Discord server. So if you want to be part of our Discord server, just go to our Facebook page because the invite link is there. But I was asked when does I like blank become I collect blank? Because there's a lot of stuff I like, but I don't collect them. But what do you think, James? Like, at what point do you feel like the thing that you like becomes the thing, like, you know, what's that tipping point, do you think?
So I think there are two items that could be said that kind of define it for me. Number one would be because I've bought something that I already have, but it's in better condition. I think that's one. Sure. And the other one is because I've bought in something just because it is that thing. Does that make sense? So I bought this NES game because it's an NES game. I have no connection to it. I have no reason to have done it, but I bought it because of that. Or
because you don't have it. You know, it's like
because I don't have it. Yeah. It's not because I like it, because I've heard about it, because of this. It's just because I don't have it. That's when collecting becomes kind of a bigger thing.
That's when it becomes a collection. That's when you know that, like, oh, I collect this now. Like, you know,
or if you have to get a storage unit, that's number 3.
A room of your house is dedicated to this thing.
Sore subject.
We both can relate. So I wanted to talk about kind of the things that we collect. And you know, I'm going to get things started. I made it pretty vocal, at least, you know, here on the show and on Techno Retro Dads a couple episodes ago. I collect Star Wars, and I collect at the moment. Now there's phases in Chris's collecting, because if you go way back, it was Batman, and then way even further back, it was Transformers, G.I. Joe, Batman for a good long time. Then it was Jurassic Park until someone closely related to me accidentally threw away all my dinosaurs and action figures. Totally an accident. I'm not bitter. Moved on. And then once.
But did they have dino damage?
Oh, absolutely. They had dino damage. They went into the dumpster and got smushed by the truck, but they also had the little pieces of flesh that came off. Sore subject, because that's the big T-Rex, the one that I saved up to buy. Anyways, you know, I was a kid. Still am a kid at heart. But when Star Wars made a big comeback when it came to action figures, Kenner came back with the Power of the Force line. It had the beefed up Luke Skywalker and the Leia that looked like a cross. It was like had a monkey face, kind of. Did not do Carrie Fisher justice at all. Got real heavy into that, and of course, leading up to Episode 1, when the toy line launched, I was standing outside of Toys R Us in Arlington, Texas, with my friend Patrick, and Patrick wanted to dress up like Darth Maul, and he was like, do you think other people are going to dress up? Now, to set the stage, I'm a senior and he's a junior in high school. And I was like, yeah, dude, people are going to dress up for this for sure. Like, this is a big deal. So so his mom made him a Darth Maul-ish black cloak with hood. He spiked up his hair. He did not do the face paint. So he was sort of just like generic Sith Lord kind of a thing. We had
with hair horns.
Yeah, he had notoriously spiky hair. So anybody listening to this that went to high school with me knows what I'm talking about. And so we waited in line at this Toys R Us. We got there about 4 or 5 o'clock. And we were maybe first or second people in line, and we spent the whole time just spreading these rumors we'd read on like theforce.net. Like we had no idea anything about this movie other than what we had already seen, in trailers and stuff. And someone was telling me, yeah, Darth Maul's he's like kind of like a snake, and he has like a forked tongue and all this garbage. I look back on now, I'm like, that was so made up. Like, I don't know where they got it from. YouTube didn't exist then. There weren't these channels spewing garbage. And so my dad had dropped us off there. And so he went to Walmart around midnight, because he was going to come back and pick us up after midnight. So he found himself at a Walmart. So they let us into the Toys R Us. I go through, I buy like one of everything, of at least the basic figures. Okay. And my dad, meanwhile, is at a Walmart while they're stocking and putting things on the shelf. And he stopped a person and was like, from opening a case of figures. And he said, can I just buy this whole case? And they were like, whatever. So they sold him this whole case unopened. And so I show up, spent all my money on these figures. And he's like, and I bought a case. Like, that's
hilarious.
It's funny because it's like, he got swept up into the excitement, I think, that we were having. Like, he was like, I got to get me some too. And I have that case. It's in a closet here at the and it's probably has like 3 Jar Jar Binks, like 3 Padme Amidala's, and few Obi-Wans, a few Qui-Gon Jinns. Maybe Senator Palpatine was like 1 per pack or something. I don't know. Some battle droids for sure. But that was like such an early memory, and I think that was it made it okay. It was like being a part of that was like the first time I feel like I knew that other people also collected toys. That it wasn't just like something that I was holding on to from childhood. It was like the first exposure to that. Now, of course, you and I have both gone to numerous comic conventions and stuff, and that's
we're well past figuring out that people still collect things.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks to the internet and going to Comic Cons and stuff and walking the show floor and being shocked at prices, of
right.
things that we owned but threw away because we didn't know what they were worth or didn't realize their worth when it came to like our nostalgic memories, what they held in our hearts, basically. Now, James, I know you collect a lot of things too. We've talked about, I'm going to talk about Funko and stuff in a little bit because that's kind of more modern, but I want to hear about, what are some of the earliest memories you've had when it comes to collecting, and what are the things that maybe you collected as a kid that you still do, or, what's your thing?
So, kind of when I was a kid, a lot of it was comic books. I loved going to the comic book store. My mom, she lived in Crystal City, which is like DC area in Virginia, and she had a comic book store that we would always go to. I remember that pretty distinctly. And people say that they blindly collect things. I would say that my collection of comics was the exact opposite of that. I solely did it with my eyes. I only pick, because I would see covers. Every book that I bought was because I liked the cover. You know what I mean?
Buying wine.
Yeah. I mean, I guess. I don't know. But, they say, you blindly do something. But it was literally the exact opposite. I was like, I like this cover. I want this. I didn't follow storylines. Like I don't think I ever bought like a sequential, 1, 2, and 3 or anything like that, or like, so all my comic books are like number 3 of 7, and like just random books. I do have a couple Jurassic Park runs where we bought, the comic book store. Once a run finished, if they had leftover books for each of the run, each one of the run, they would bundle them together and sell it at a slight discount.
Okay.
Things like that. So I do have a couple of those. I had a Alien versus Predator run that I had that I don't think my stepmom was too fond of me owning that one. I think it said bullshit or something, so that was a no-go. Had to hide that with the South Park soundtrack in between my mattress and my box spring.
It's like how disappointed. It's like you lift it up and like, oh, it's just South Park. Like, could be much worse.
Right. And yeah, so a lot of my collecting was solely based on that. And then kind of as I got older and started getting into when I was in high school, the big thing was, Xbox. The original Xbox was my main console. And I was working at Baskin Robbins at the time, making my $180 a week, which to me was $1 billion or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
So I guess it was probably $180 every 2 weeks now that I think about it. But, so I would just go to the GameStop and I would just buy all the cheap games. So rather than get 3 new games, I would get everything that was $5. You know what I mean?
You'd get like $20 licensed movie video games. Like
I really would. I would get all like the old used games. And so I ended up like and that's kind of always been my thing. I've always been much more into quantity over quality. Not necessarily that they were bad games or like, but I would never go after the things that everyone was talking about. Of course, I would get like Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic when it first came out and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
But for the most part, it was I just kind of bought more en masse, and it's just the way that it was. So yeah, that's kind of the main early memories, I guess, that I have of collecting. And now as an adult, I mean, unfortunately, it's kind of lost a lot of collecting has lost a lot of charm, being that unless you have these specific groups of people that you do business with, it's kind of online, and it's a little bit less personal, if that makes sense.
I will agree with you on a lot of levels with that, especially with my Star Wars collection, because Star Wars, the action figures, specifically like the 3 3/4 inch basic line, starting in 2008, there was a big relaunch, and it had to do with the Clone Wars was on TV. Hasbro was pumping out action figures, just awesome obscure characters and better sculpts from things. They were all super articulated, and the collecting scene was like really like at its like full speed, full pace. Stuff was hard to find. The vintage collection made its return, and I used to drive all around San Antonio, hitting up every Target, and this would be like a Saturday. Super exciting, right? I'm super cool. Want to hang out with me? I'd go from Walmart to Target to the Toys R Us, sometimes like Kohl's. If I heard a store report that Kohl's had some figures, and to find, and like HEB, which is a grocery store, they had some toys, and to try to find it. And then that satisfaction of walking into an HEB, going to their toy aisle, and there was the Bastila Shan, from Knights of the Old Republic, and vintage carded, and just, been like, yes, like my whole day was worth it, Yeah. And now distribution is so terrible that, I mean, literally anytime you go to a Walmart or Target, like there's nothing new. There's the same stuff hanging on the pegs. And if you want the new stuff, you have to go to like Entertainment Earth or something like that. Except now, I do have a new favorite store, and I'm going to talk about it later because I want to give them the amount of airtime that they're due, because it's fantastic and highly recommended. So when the Star Wars luster for me of the hunt that started to fade, in comes Funko, because I had bought one Funko Pop. This is how it always happens, James. So this is the warning signs, basically. You're in a store. I know I know you've got some.
Yes.
But you go into a store and you see one, and you're like, "Oh, I didn't know these were a thing yet." And that happened to me, and it was a Boba Fett. It was from their first line. I bought it, opened it, put it on my shelf, thought it looked cool. Then all of a sudden, I just noticed the Funko Pops were everywhere, and there was a Funko Pop for all of these crazy licenses. It expanded beyond what it was had Batman and Star Wars and some of their early licenses they had. They had Marvel, and so now I'm just like, I have to have this one. Well, if I have this one character from Star Wars Rebels, I have to have Ezra, and there was a exclusive Captain Rex, and so I had to do all that. So and trying to track them down, and then doing the logging of your figures into Stashopedia, and it's like, these are what these are worth. And then Funko drops exclusives every week on their online store, and it's a crapshoot if you're going to get in. Recently, last week, they had an Elvira Pop that was limited to like 1,500 pieces, and it was sold out in like 2 minutes.
That's so crazy.
And I know. And so I'm super proud of and I know Funko's going to come up multiple times, in the pantheon of episodes that we'll produce here. But because I want to talk about going to their headquarters too. But looking at my collection, I've started to really get into the, of course, Star Wars, but they're called ad icons, which are basically the mascots for brands. And my most valuable one, which I had to get online, which I'm surprised. I wasn't even sure that my order even processed because the website was basically broken and it took forever to get the confirmation email. But it's Toucan Sam, and that little guy. Not that I'm collecting this for money, but it's fun to see, right? On PPG, the Pop Price Guide, he's going for like $290
for a little piece of plastic.
Yeah, for some vinyl that that cost a store, like the wholesale cost to buy these are like $5. That's what a store pays, and then so it was $15, and now if I could literally walk into my favorite new comic book
dealer
store. My dealer. They pay, I think they buy 40 to 50% of PPG. So I'm still going in, walking out with $100.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's awesome. So freaking cool.
So I have to ask, and I know I have one, but what is the one thing in your collection that you're like, why do I literally only own this because it is this? Like, why do I have this?
Let's see.
There's got to be one of those pops that's just like, dude, why?
Well, I'm not questioning. Oh gosh, I don't know. Probably I bought the one that I'm thinking. I got Rosie from the Jetsons, and I only bought it because it's a robot, and I like the robot ones. I'm pretty specific. I am pretty specific. I don't buy them just. Okay. I don't buy them just because they're of that brand.
The problem with you is that you like so many things, and Funko has a licensing deal with 90% of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I love I got a bunch of the Power Ranger pops. I've got Jurassic Park. I've got Back to the Future. I have the Pillsbury Doughboy. I have Britney Spears. I have the Noid from Domino's. Like, literally, you're a fan of something, Funko's got it. It's just kind of insane, to be honest. But I do want to just give a recommendation. If you are going to the Seattle area and you are a Funko Pop collector, even if you're just kind of a collector like James, I would even suggest that you take the time to go. It's in Everett, Washington, which is about a 45-minute drive north of Seattle. And they have this giant flagship store, and you walk in and they have a Star Wars area that looks like Hoth. There's even a full-size Pop-inspired Wampa that's holding up Luke by his foot. There's Tauntaun. There's a Darth Vader and his stormtroopers up top. It's all very themed out. There's a whole Harry Potter Wizarding World Hogwarts area. There's a Disney area, and a Batman with a full-size vintage 1960s Batmobile that's got a Batman sitting in the driver's seat that you can sit in alongside and ride shotgun with Batman. It's awesome. I'll post pictures. It's incredible, and it highly recommend. And they've got all the exclusives that are hard to find too. So it's worth going if you're looking for some stuff that's supposed to be a store exclusive that's sold out. They'll have the Target exclusives. They'll have the Walmart exclusives in their headquarters store. Okay, James, while we wrap up our conversation on collecting, because I know we're gonna come back. I have thoughts on. I want to look at specific collecting niches and do some investigative studies and stuff at a later date. But is there something that you are still searching for? In some collecting circles, you'd call this your grail. Like, what is it? Like, is it a comic? Is it a video game? Is there still something out there that you're like, man, if only I could get this?
Yeah. For me, man, what would it be? I mean, I don't know that it would be considered a grail, because generally it's like it's because it's expensive is why people make it their holy grail. I feel like. I think mine would probably, I mean, if I were to go the expensive route, I'd probably be like a complete in-box like Sculptor's Cut, which is Clay Fighter's Sculptor's Cut for N64, which is it was only a blockbuster release late in the life cycle of the N64. It's probably the most valuable game on 64, and then complete in box it's like $1,800 or something stupid like that. So I would never ever in my life do it. I think like an attainable holy grail that I could see myself purchasing would probably be a Japanese N64 with a disk drive system that didn't come out in America, and there's only like 3 games for it. So it's almost like, why would I own it? But you know, that's kind of my I guess my thing that I would go for. Yeah,
for me, it's still I don't have the Darth Revan action figure. Like I have the 6-inch, I have the Black Series, but it's always eluded me. Like I've always shown up at the store, and the rest of that wave is on the pegs, but Revan is gone. So if you've got a Revan that you don't want, send me a message and I'll pay for shipping.
So not the Black Series Darth Revan.
No, I have that.
We've got too many of those.
I've got that. We're good. We're good. I don't have the 3 3/4 inch Darth Revan. I'd love that one. All right, James, we're still gonna dive into glass, but before we do that, let's do our picks of the week. James, get us started, man.
Yeah, so my pick of the week this week, I've been kind of doing some Netflix watching as I go to bed, and I don't know why this puts me to sleep so easily, but I've been watching the Ted Bundy tapes, which is a docu-series on Netflix. It's really entertaining, enjoyable. I don't know. It's just a lot of information that I didn't know about Ted Bundy, like the fact that his girlfriend took him to the police and was like, I think my boyfriend is the serial killer. And they were like, interviewed him and left or whatever. Like, it's just so many like weird things. And then just how he got caught, and kind of it's a real insight into the person behind Ted Bundy, I guess. It's interesting. It's all based on a reporter who went in to interview Ted Bundy, and essentially Ted Bundy took his tape recorder and just started doing a monologue. And it's really interesting. It kind of balances between the reporter talking about the interview and an actual retelling of kind of the crime and how he got caught, essentially the investigation.
Oh, weird. So it's like I guess the trailers, when I was looking at it real briefly, I was like, I'm shocked that they have that it's not just a documentary where they have other people witnessing and talking about it. You're actually hearing Ted Bundy talking about all this.
Yeah, it's really unsettling, but for some reason I've been watching it to go to sleep at night.
It's messed up, man. Like other people, the sounds of the ocean, crashing
puts me out like a baby.
Whale sound, this serial killer talking about. Does he go into like in confession kind of talk where he's explaining stuff, or is it all him denying?
So I haven't really gotten into that part. I know in the beginning he talks about it's almost in the third person, but he doesn't say names. It's more like a person could get this type of feeling, or could have this urge and things like that, kind of along that line. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I haven't gotten into so the killings have happened on the investigative side, but Ted Bundy hasn't started talking about them yet.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense. So it's very interesting though.
Well, that's Ted Bundy right now is making a movie with like Zac Efron, like.
That would probably be pretty good.
That's happening.
Yeah.
People are going to be like into Ted Bundy for some reason. Like, that's going to be weird. Like, it's like, could they
Ted Bundy's so hot right now.
I know, right? Like, could it not have been Zac Efron? Like, could it, it's kind of a weird thing to put somebody who looks that good, like, in that role. I don't know. But that's what sells movies.
Ted Bundy was like famously good looking. Like, that's part of the thing.
Okay. I'll give that one to you. So earlier I was talking about collecting and, kind of the challenge of the hunt and all that. Now, everybody listening is at one point in their life have been into a comic book store and look through toys and you look at the pricing and you're kind of shocked by it because it's always more than what you thought it should be. Almost like you're buying it at eBay prices or something. Well, on one of these toy runs in this recent era of my collecting when it comes to Funko Pop, stumbled across like out of nowhere. Like this was just we were in a shopping center, we saw the sign, and we went in, and literally it's in San Antonio. It's off of Huebner. You can Google it. It's called Gravity Damage Collectibles. They have a great Facebook page where they're always posting what's come into the store, and it lets you know like, oh, they just got this. Someone just sold this, and you can call them and pay for it over the phone, and they'll hold it. And it used to be, before they got really busy, you used to be able to just comment on that Facebook post and say, hey, can you hold this for me? And they'd be like, sure. And then you'd go in and they'd have it for you. Now you have to, actually, pay for it, because I think people were just saying, hold it for me, and not showing up. But this place literally has everything. They're a full service comic book store with people who know what they're talking about. The owner, Bill, who is the nicest person in the world, remembers you, recognizes, that you've been in the store before, will talk to you, is friendly. And recently, I know that he's not been in the store as often because he's moved, but they're opening some additional stores. I think he's branching out. I've heard there's going to be an Austin one and one in Houston. So if they open, definitely check them out. Here's the cool thing, though. You go in and you see a Funko Pop that you want. They are going to be priced at their honest price. Any common pop, anything that's not exclusive or rare is going to be is just flat out going to be like $10, like $10.50. And if you buy 3, they're $9. This is not a commercial. They're not paying me. And they did this thing over Christmas where it was like $5 for every common as like a thank you for the store being open for like a year or two. And then the exclusive ones, the ones that are hard to find, meanwhile, at another shop, they're going to charge you like eBay prices. Whatever the value is on the pop price guide is what they charge. So if it's, normally it would have been a $10 pop, but now it's worth $20, it's $20. You can look up the price yourself, while you're shopping, and go, oh, I do want this. I'll go get it. You don't have to go to the register and only to find out it's like they're going to charge you $50 or something like that. Also, a big shout out that they MSRP, like the regular price for the Black Series Star Wars figures, $19. It doesn't matter if it's a rare one or whatever. It's just that's the manufactured retail price. The fair pricing and like the people and the atmosphere is what really sets this place apart. So if you find yourself in San Antonio and if they open stores elsewhere, definitely check it out. Follow them on Facebook if you're in the San Antonio area, because if you're looking for something, every single day they're posting purchases that they've made from collectors, and you can walk in there and get them. So cannot recommend this store anymore. It's an awesome place, and they have tons of Funko Pop. It's just wall to wall. It's amazing.
What kind of lard brain punk writes spoiler alert after giving out the spoiler? Hashtag you! Wow, chill out, Gumball.
All right, so James, you finally went and saw the movie Glass, and we're going to talk about it. So we're going to talk without censoring ourselves when it comes to spoilers or plot details. So if you're going to bug out now, make sure to follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/thegeekstate. On Twitter, we're at The Geek State Pod. So James, first and foremost, we've seen all the movies. We've seen Unbreakable. We've seen Split. Now we've seen Glass. Initial thoughts, like just overview of your opinion of the movie Glass.
Of just Glass by itself, I thought it was quite good. I mean, it was entertaining. I thought that the twists were hell. One of them I definitely called while watching Split. Once I found out that it was a sequel to Unbreakable, being that his dad, that was it Kevin's dad, passed away on the train that Bruce Willis survived. And I figured because Glass set that event off, I assumed that was going to come back to bite him in the butt, which it did, obviously.
I remember that too, because unfortunately we were like, oh man, I'm sure we talked about this on S'more Geeks on our old podcast. So we went back and looked through the archives because I know we had this conversation. And I guess we had it off air right before we started recording. Because that would have been really good to like plug it in, like boop, here it is. Like let's backtrack a couple years ago to hear this prediction.
Oh, well, I've had this conversation with enough people to where I have enough credibility to make sure that I'm not going crazy that this conversation occurred. So, but yeah, I mean, so I kind of called that, but it did have the second twist, which I thought was really well done. The only thing I wish is that it was flushed out a little more, that kind of the secret society twist, but
me too.
I kind of wish that was like like late act 2 and not late act 3.
Right. Because that to me, I felt like, oh, the movie's not over yet. Like I kind of, when that revelation happened, I started to thinking, oh, maybe this movie is there's more to be told. Like I was already feeling like, okay, this is the end of the movie. We're wrapping things up now. And then it was like, here's one more big revelation that lets, kind of leaves you hanging. And I was expecting like there to be something extra, something more to that, because it doesn't really have much of a payoff. You're sort of just like, oh, well, and, at the end, the secret of their society is sort of, I guess, revealed. The sort of, I mean, wasn't it sort of like them broadcasting all of this stuff kind of?
Yeah, so just to catch people up who didn't see the movie, I guess, that are listening. So we obviously Unbreakable Split, sorry, and Glass, the threequel, the trilogy, kind of in the main setting of Glass is inside a mental institute, and Sarah Paulson, I believe is her name.
Yeah, love
is that right?
her. Sarah Paulson.
Yeah, she was awesome in this. She's awesome in everything she's in, though, to be honest. But she is a psychiatrist type character who is kind of evaluating Glass, Kevin, and is it David?
Paul?
No, it's alliteration. David Dunn. Yeah. But essentially, she's evaluating them and kind of giving them all the reasons that they're not superheroes, and all the reasons that how Kevin survived being shot with a shotgun in Split was because it was in a basement. There was a lot of moisture. The cartridges were very old, and essentially the gun misfired, and it just shot the BBs out. The gunpowder was all dry, or was all wet
or something,
so it didn't ignite properly.
Because she was trying to convince them, that they weren't superheroes. That way, her organization could achieve their goal of diffusing these superhumans from messing up the order of society. And
they pretty much made it to where they insinuated that historically they've been killing superheroes, and Sarah Paulson's character's goal was, we don't need to kill these people. We can humanely convince them that they're not superheroes. Right. Essentially was kind of her thing, and that went terribly wrong.
Yeah, she failed. I agree with you. This was a really interesting, fun, original movie, which is nice to see. Something, especially when it comes to like a genre film that's not, I mean, this is technically a franchise because it's part of a trilogy, but it was one that, after we didn't know while we were watching Split that we were watching a part of the Unbreakable,
saga,
which that to me made Split was good on its own. Like, it was enjoyable. It was neat. But then at that last moment with Bruce Willis, you're like, holy crap. Like, this is awesome. Like,
yes.
That is such a pure, I mean, it's sort of like if you can watch Sixth Sense, the Sixth Sense, and not have already been spoiled going into it. Like, that is such a fun experience. If you can get that, obviously if you're listening to the show, sorry. But that was awesome. And I really feel like James McAvoy did an amazing job in this movie, because it's pretty heavy when it comes to, Kevin. Like, he's the main star. Yeah, he's definitely the main focus. And then, it's kind of interesting that it's called Glass, but, I would say out of the three, Samuel Jackson's kind of the lowest, I guess,
gets the least screen time, or
especially
for
dialogue. He's
three
quiet.
quarters of the movie, he's silent and has his head slightly cocked to the right. So, but yeah, I mean, I thought the movie was great, and I think that honestly, I think the trilogy, if you're looking at, in my opinion, if you're looking at superhero movie trilogies, which this is obviously kind of a subset of that, being that it's almost like it's not really a superhero movie. It's more of like a psychological thriller that just so happens to star characters that have, superhuman feet, so I mean, it's right up there. I enjoy watching this. I think it's definitely something that it's one of those things that it's hard to let somebody who doesn't know about this experience it the way that we did, though, because you'd have to be like, watch Unbreakable and then
wait like
10 years later, make them watch Split, and they're like, huh? And then they can watch Glass a year, right afterwards. Without
telling them that there's like watch Unbreakable. Period. Stop. Never say that there's another movie.
Right. Yeah, that's how you'd have to do it.
Yeah. Show up at their house and be like, "Hey, it's been 10 years, buddy. I've got another movie for you."
But yeah, I mean, I thought it was great, but unfortunately, the biggest highs of that, you had to have experienced it the way we experienced it, as far as the trilogy is concerned.
And I think you still can watch these movies and still get, the enjoyment level that is expected, but you can't replicate the same thing that we had of going to see Unbreakable and then that, all that time passing. So it sounds like we both recommend it. It's getting the Geek State seal of approval. It's certified Geek State.
Certified Geek State.
Make a stamp for that one. Watch them put that on TV ads. Take that, Rotten Tomatoes.
It is 96% certified geek.
There we go. We'll come up with our own rating system. We'll put out a graphic. It'll be pretty sweet. Well, that about wraps it up for this week on the podcast. If you would like to join our community, there are lots of ways that you can do it, and we'd love for you to be a part of it. You can join us on Facebook, facebook.com/thegeekstate. On Twitter, we're at The Geek State Pod. If you go over to our Facebook page, you can join our Discord server. You can also, if you're not on Facebook but you're on Twitter, you can send me a direct message at The Geek State Pod, and I'll send you an invite link so you can join us in the Discord. Today, there was a lot of rumors going around that we were going to get a Star Wars title release, and we may have already had it, so just pretend I'm not saying this if it already has happened. But we had a really fun conversation going on the Discord of potential title names. I'm gonna pull this up actually, because we had some real gems, and I know, James, you didn't have a chance to take a look because this was all going on.
This was all happening behind my back.
I know. It feels a little like I'm cheating.
Trying to scroll through.
Okay, so we've got Star Wars Episode 9, Jar Jar Love Story. How about Star Wars Episode 9, The Knights Who Say Ren. Star Wars Lost. Star Wars Just Kidding, Rey is Luke's kid. Two Jedi, Too Furious. Jedi Bang Bang. Bedknobs and Lightsabers. Luke and the Infinity Stone. Luke and the Giant Infinity Stone. Star Wars, the one with Felicity. So anyways, we had a fun time. So if you want to be a part of the Discord, just let me know. That about does it for this week's episode of the podcast. From everyone here at the Geek State, stay excellent to each other, and we'll see you next time.
Or like this. Hey, Luke, what was Yoda really like?
Great question.
What are you talking about? He was a puppet.
Of the Empire? No way!
I never knew that! Okay, I think this is it!
Hello, caller!
Yeah.
Caller!
Make him say, I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. That was Apocalypse Now.
From all of us here at S'more Geeks, stay excellent to each other, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, dumbass. It's not S'more Geeks.
Did I say it again?
Yeah. You did.
I didn't even realize it that time. Yeah.
I like it.
It's a little reveal. Behind the curtains, we are real people. Beep, boop, beep, boop.
And then people will be like, oh my God, they didn't edit this out. It's cool.
It's an error. It's like a rare It's a rare podcast.
That's right.
Keep this podcast in the wrapper because
and then when we get famous, BuzzFeed will be like 6 times S'more Geeks didn't edit.
And they were like, this is the Geeks.
And then they'll be like, but it's actually the Geeks take. God, I'm an idiot.